Hello. The background noise you hear is the tinkling of a stream. I hope it's pleasant. I am here at, oh gosh, I'm very close to the camera. I'm here at Ohana Campground, and I'm being quiet because I don't like people hearing me film. So I've also come to a particular little cove that I know deadens sound because there is a log on that end, and you can't hear the on either side of it. The sounds are quite deadened, and then on this side we have this big tipped over tree and that big stone up there that dampens sound from the other side. And in here I'm in just this little cove that when I was probably 11 or 12 I named Peace Cove because of the sound deadening, and it's the place where the stream slows down and is hardly moving at all in some places. I've also come here to read a bit, and I'm reading The Werewolf of Paris by Guy Endor. It's very weird, but also very interesting. It's quite dark, but I'll tell you more about it when I've finished. Right now I'm on page 120, and it is Tuesday, the third day of the Monsterathon. And I've got about an hour to read here before I need to go back to the campsite for dinner. The Ohana River, but it's opaque because it is glacier fed. So yesterday I went up to Paradise with my family. It's still not focusing on me. And if you're not aware, Mount Rainier is famous for its wildflowers, and the best place to see the wildflowers is at Paradise. I filmed some of them, but not nearly enough of them. Didn't get the best shots because I'm not that great of a vlogger when I'm trying to also spend time with my family. But today we're going to Sunrise, which also has pretty good wildflowers. Hopefully I'll get to show you a nice display of paintbrush, which are my favorite flower. But right now I'm traipsing along this stream that I love. It just has been my favorite thing to hop along the rocks and walk across the logs since I was about 10. And in this same place. And it's got a lot of scope for the imagination, and I really enjoy that. Heyo, we're back in Peace Cove, and I am trying to extricate myself from thoughts of the current book I'm reading, which is The Library of Fates, so that I can tell you about a book that I've actually completed, which is, I'm not sure where, I guess the light's just coming from above, so it's just gonna look like this no matter which way I turn. Okay, anyway, very pink. Basically, The Library of Fates is YA, and I don't know why I keep reading YA, except that that's where you get all the recommendations, because that's where all the hype is, and all the people who recommend books are recommending YA books. It's not bad, but it's not what people said it was. It's not amazing. But that's not what we're talking about right now. What we're talking about right now is that the first book I read this week was The Enchanted Castle by Author on the Screen, and it was a middle grade. I love middle grade. For some reason, middle schoolers are so much more mature than teenagers. Probably because they don't have stupid hormones. I never enjoyed YA even when I was a teenager. Anyway, middle grade book, Enchanted Castle. It's quite old. I think it's in the public domain. From the description, it sounded like she is a fairly well-known children's author who has a good reputation of spinning imaginative tales, which this was one of. It reminded me, actually, of some other middle grade I've read, but that has gone off into the fog of memory, and I can't quite grasp it, but it has the somewhat classic squad of 4 middle schoolers, 2 boys and 2 girls, and it is about them finding / living in an enchanted castle, or what they think is an enchanted castle. There's definitely a castle and there's definitely magic going on, but they have a hard time figuring out where the magic is coming from, and what it does, and how it works, and why it's happening. And so most of the story is about these 4 messing around with the magic, doing somewhat irresponsible things with it, basically playing with it, while also trying to investigate how it works so they can figure out how to control it better and what they ought to be doing with it, and also trying to figure out what's going on with this castle and the people living in it. I enjoyed it quite a bit. There was some side characters with a romance going on, and it was medium maturely conducted. There was some drama, but it was mainly caused by the magic, so not really their fault, and they were adults. Plus, it wasn't really the main character's issue. They were just doing their thing, trying to help out. And so, some types of magic included are a magical ring that does all sorts of stuff, some magical statues that come to life at night, not in the day, but every night, some animated coats and gloves and things that become people, and fun stuff like that. So that was an audiobook. It was 304 pages, and I basically decided to do an audiobook that wasn't part of my TBR because none of the ones on my TBR were available in audiobook, and I wanted to feel like I was working on the readathon while I was playing my video game, which is still Fire Emblem 3 Houses, by the way, and which I'm enjoying very much. It's good. Much like happens in every Fire Emblem game I play, except the more recent one, If Fates. That one just didn't hit me as hard, didn't like grab a hold of me as much. But in most Fire Emblem games, you control a whole squad of characters who you train up to become warriors of different types, and all my little team, my little squad, they are my little chicks, and I will take care of them, and no one will hurt them. And I'm very attached, so I'm having a good time with that. The other books that I've completed this week are all 3 of my Kami-sama Kiss manga that I had. They're completely out of order. I have 3, 5, and 6. So I read 5 and 6, and then I read 3, because 3 is one that I enjoy less because it is one where, not Haruhi, that's a different anime. Momozuno. Nanami Momozuno. Nanami gets kidnapped for a while, and it was very much, I noticed it was very much more drawn out, the kidnapping bit, in the anime than in the manga. It actually went really fast in the manga, which is interesting because usually when you go from book to movie or show, it gets quite squished down. So it's been very interesting to see, since I watched the anime first, how the what different parts were left in, what parts were taken out. The main plot is flowing very similarly, but in the show, a couple of characters were just fully taken out because they, quite frankly, didn't have anything to do with the plot, and were just there for funsies. And other times, little fun things like going off for a party with some characters she'd helped out in the last episode or book that happened in the manga didn't happen in the show because it was just extra fluff, but the main plot has been very, very similar, and so have the characters. The characters have very much been maintained from the manga to the show, which sometimes doesn't always happen. So that's really nice, because I really like the characters, so I'm glad they're the same. To help you decide if it's something you want to read or watch, it is about Nanami, and she was basically abandoned by her parents. One parent died, and then the other one abandoned her, and so she was homeless for about a day before this land god found her and decided to give her his shrine and his place as a land god. And so now she's supposed to be this new land god and take care of all the things that he was taking care of, except that he wasn't actually taking care of it for the last 20 years. He had abandoned his shrine, which included a shinshi, or a familiar, and 2 shrine caretakers, little bitty cute things. It is about her, Nanami, becoming the land god and figuring out how to take care of the people who are in her little area that she's supposed to take care of, because she's kind of the ruler and the magical energy caretaker of the area, and about how she forms relationships with the familiar of the shrine and how she interacts with all the Ayakashi, which are in some ways called demons, but they're magical creatures, basically. There's sea magical creatures, there's ones that are incarnate catfish, there's Tengu, which is just another magical creature thing, kind of related to a crow, and there's miasma, which is dark energy, which infects places, and she has to clean it out, and fun stuff like that. And it's quite entertaining. I really like the magical world, and I really like all the characters, like I said. They're good characters. And the art style is very much maintained from the manga to the show, so that's really fun too. I really like the art style. Now, have I finished anything else? Oh, I've put off reading the rest of The Werewolf of Paris for now because it's very dark, and I was thinking of plowing through it and getting it over with, but my reading speed is what it is. I can't really speed up without skimming, so I'm gonna read it a bit at a time so it doesn't get me down too badly, and intermix it with reading other stuff. Library of Fates isn't really bad, by the way, and the main character, she is driving me nuts, and has been since the beginning of the book. I'm almost 200 pages in now. But to be fair, she was raised stupidly in ignorance of all the stuff going on around her, and if the people around her had just told her the truth and trusted her to handle it, she would not be such a mess and unable to handle anything as she is right now. So it's not really her fault. So I'm home now. I finished reading the Library of Fates, I guess Friday. Today it's Saturday. And I really, really did not like... My cat's dropping things off my windowsill. I really, really didn't like it. I was coming around to the point of thinking it was just a meh book, not a bad book, but then the ending really destroyed it. Hey! Harwin, stop it! Stop! Don't start again. Anyway, today I watched another booktuber's review of it to try to get a handle on, is this main character as naive as I think she is? Is she as stupid as I think she is? What's going on here? And the other booktuber agreed that she was very naive, and that was a big frustrating part of the book. And she also agreed that the characters were very flat, and you don't learn hardly anything about the characters, and their actions and their relationships especially don't make sense. They're super shallow, they're formed too quick. You don't it was such a promising premise. The premise was really promising, and the mythology was really promising. It was really creative, and a lot of interesting stuff was going on. The prose wasn't bad, except that it was too flowery sometimes. And the characters, the ideas for the characters were really promising, especially the main secondary character, who was an oracle. And the relationship between the main character and her could have been really interesting and meaningful, but it just wasn't. You hardly get to know anything characterization-wise about either of those two characters, let alone their relationship. And then, spoilers ahead. Skip to the time code I'll put if you don't want them, but I really don't recommend you bother with reading this book. But the ending is super... But the way in which the ending was bad was that it was super enabling of sexism. The author said it was supposed to be a feminist book, but the end had the main bad guy of the book turned out to be an incel. He went on a rampage across the whole world, destroying and conquering everything like Alexander the Great, and instituting slavery and misogyny and blah de blah, because when he was 20, his girlfriend, who wasn't even really his girlfriend, it was just a girl he liked, decided to leave him for somebody else. And the solution to him being a bad guy ever after that was to go back in time and tell her not to leave him, to stay with him and be with him and marry him, so that he wouldn't turn into a bad guy. So that was extremely upsetting. I actually gave myself a tension headache last night thinking about it. So that was a very upsetting book. That was a very upsetting time, and but it looks like Sorcery of Thorns isn't going to arrive in time for this readathon. So I'm going to use this book for the Angry Mob challenge, and I'm going to use my recommendation for the Monstrous Humans challenge to complete that one, and that is The Language of Thorns by Leigh Bardugo, which I've read before and thus know is quite good. I've also started The Wild Robot. I think I'm about 75 pages into that one. It's middle grade or lower. It's actually, or younger. It's actually quite a bit written for younger audiences than I was thinking when I first got it. But it's really interesting and quite fun. There's talking animals. Arwen's talking to me. She wants out of my room. Yeah, I'm gonna get up in a second. I am set. And that's all I have to update you on, but and I'm gonna put on the screen how many villagers I have terrified during this week, because I haven't done the math yet. But I think it's towards 2,000 now. Yes, Arwen. And I gotta go put that into the spreadsheet and check on how the other teams are doing, because I have no idea where the standing is right now, because I've been cut off from the internet. So thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye!